Here we go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You are live at Courtside with Lawman,
And Carmen B.
and we are here to talk about the issues that affect the public and that affect your community, our community.
Yes. And so, in that vein, welcome to the show tonight. We hope to talk about a bunch of stuff. We always try to stay topical and talk about things in the news. Remember that you can send us a chat, that you can send us an email, and that you can call in order to ask some questions that might be burning on your mind.
Yes. And specifically, both of us are uh, criminal defense law practitioners, so that is our area of expertise. And so, any questions that you have regarding criminal law issues or any other topic that we are discussing, please feel free to comment in the chat, to give us a call at 916-284-8204, which is the courtside phone number.
And note that when we discuss our issues, that we are not retained by you and that we don't speak for you or any particular individuals.
Yes. So if you call in with your question and we answer that question, it does not create an attorney-client relationship between myself, Carmen Butler, and the caller, nor between Lawman Keith Staten and the caller. This show is for informational and educational purposes. We want the community to be an informed community.
Yes.
Because an informed community can take action.
Right. And let's see, is it a holiday today, huh? Or tomorrow, actually, I guess, officially, but we've got a holiday to talk about.
I believe so. I believe what has transpired is that Juneteenth has been made a federal holiday.
And that's interesting that how fast that went through.
Extremely interesting, because there's certain other things that we have been advocating for that have been that have been placed on the back burner. The most important one of the most important is voting rights, and a voting rights act or bill that will do something to counter what we see happening in these Republican-led states to try and basically suppress the African American vote.
Right.
That we could not get past.
Yeah. And the George Floyd Act can't get passed. But for some reason, they passed for the holiday. And now one thing that we were talking about
and that was unanimous. That was unanimous.
Amazing. But it left me with...
How did it make you feel?
Well, it made me feel this. I knew what states did when they tried to make Martin Luther King Day, a national holiday. There was a lot of resistance from states. And it makes me feel that this has come on so fast that, and it's really going to be another year. We are literally 365 days away from a true recognition, whereby federal workers have to be off, and the state workers, I think, will probably have an option to be off, to see whether it will be enforced and how will it be celebrated. Will it really be celebrated, or will there be resistance? Right now in our culture of our country is that we're resisting a lot of things.
When you say we, you're talking about
as a country.
Of the citizens.
Yes. Oh, sure. That there's a great deal of citizens are resisting a lot of things. They don't believe, we can run it down. Vaccines or not. Resisting teaching racism and things in their classroom or not. Teaching American history, the truth or not. There's a class of people and groups of people who are resisting a lot of things. And it's funny because this celebration happens to be right in the central area of that critical race theory that they're talking about. They don't want in schools. And yet it is about that. It is directly about that. It is also sad that it was 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, whereby, the last slaves are freed. But nonetheless, African American people here have been celebrating this for a long time. And I guess I'm going to be happy that they have passed it as a recognition of slavery.
And we appreciate that recognition. We are not in any way degrading the recognition of that date, of what Juneteenth means to us as a people, what Juneteenth should have meant to this country for a very long time. We do have a comment in a statement in the comments from CC Badger, and it's BS. Excuse my Spanish.
Yeah.
Yes, you please put in the chat how you feel about this new holiday that the government has created.
It's it brings up this. Okay. And I started thinking about this when it happened, right? The 13th Amendment actually, promotes slavery of individuals who have been convicted of crimes. And we know how that has led to mass incarceration and things like that have been devastating on our communities. And here we are saying that slavery is no more, but yet there's that wink of the eye again. Oh, but go get yourself convicted and, we might can do it again. So it's almost like it was kind of empty in a way. It was like, well, yay, we can celebrate it, but whoa, is it really over?
You know what? When we think about people who are incarcerated in California, they are paid some de minimis amount of money, some number of cents per hour. If they're lucky and they get to be work the fires, I think they may even make $1 an hour or $2 an hour. But there are many states who pay their inmate workers absolutely zero.
Right.
And so if you have someone working for you and you are not paying them anything, is that not slavery?
Yeah. Or how we criticize companies who use sweatshops in other countries and things like that, and yet our own governmental system and utilizes the services. Free labor is free labor.
Yes.
Cheap labor is cheap labor.
Yes. And a lot of people don't actually realize that there are private companies that use inmate labor to produce their products.
Right.
And it's nowhere on the packaging. Unless you research the prison industrial complex, you won't even realize that the number of products that are produced by inmate labor.
So it just seems like such another bipolar thing of the country whereby, hey, we're going to recognize that slavery is done, dead, in the ground. However, there is that little clause on the 13th Amendment which holds it open just in case. So, but I prefer to be a little bit more positive about it, I guess, and say that, thank goodness for some kind of progress. Makes me thankful of my heritage to know that I am a descendant of slaves and that, it is to be celebrated, that it is no more. But it makes me really just think about what we're doing historically and why it's so important that we move forward today with understanding, knowledge of our laws, of what we should do and do as a people. And be careful of falling, I guess I'm gonna call it the gulch, this thing that you slip into, and you think you're not gonna slip into it at first, but then it starts pulling you in, and that's where you become unaware of who you are here,
or you just become comfortable, kind of where you are, and not realize what is happening around you.
Right.
We have 2 other comments from CC Badger in the chat. For our judicial rights and award us with equality. Yes, we would prefer that.
Yeah.
We would prefer that over you giving us a national
time to party.
Not a national, but a federal holiday.
Yeah.
Which a lot of federal holidays, how are they celebrated? Macy's has a sale. The stores have a sale.
And you can buy a car.
Yeah, and it seems like it's not even about what the true meaning of the holiday is.
True.
Now, my thought process on it is they've made this a federal holiday, but they don't really want to talk about the real issue. repairing the damage that has been done to the African American community. How do you repair that damage? How do you repay that debt? Not just the debt of owed for the free labor that was received,
land and
from
everything
slavery,
stolen,
but the land that was stolen from people. Homes that were taken, businesses that were burned, lives that were taken. And this was all done while our government stood by and watched. We, as a people, could not count on our government to protect our property. Now, maybe even not so much now, but the thought process is, if something happens, I can call the police and they will come and arrest the perpetrator. Well, unfortunately, I think a lot of times the police were some of the perpetrators. So they certainly were not going to arrest and penalize and punish the people who were burning down African-American homes, African-American property, running people out of town. And separate and apart from that, then we have to talk about what happened with Jim Crow and what happened with redlining. All of those things, those policies that were purposely put in place to limit African-American wealth. And that is why we are in the position that we are in as a people. I do see another comment in the chat from Sheepdog Protector. Can prisoners that help put out the wildfires in California get a job as firemen when they get out now?
I got two thoughts on that. Number one, they do learn the skill of putting out fires, but you got to realize it's a limited skill when it comes to being a fireman, because most firemen are working, at least in cities and towns and things, on structures and stuff like that.
I believe there was a new law passed that does allow them. I don't know that it's your regular city firefighter, but does, I believe, allow them to become firefighters with like the
Cal Fire, right?
Yeah, Cal Fire like and the Conservation Corps, which are state agencies, that work with fighting the fires. So certainly, that is much better than what they had before, which was they would have the skill of fighting fires and then they would get out, and that skill could not be utilized to get a job with Cal Fire or with the Conservation Corps because of their felony record.
And definitely the need in California is tremendous.
And now they actually can.
Yeah. So that is a good thing. But we were talking about how things after slavery have also been a sort of a noose around our neck to keep us from progressing. And what do we do about those things? And believe it or not, those things are something we fight all the time. I mean, when we talk about voting rights, we should not even have to talk about that.
No,
but
if we're full citizens, if everyone who is born here is a full citizen, there would be, with all the rights that are in the Constitution, there would be no need for a Voting Rights Act. But there's a need for a Voting Rights Act because what we have seen is that states will make attempts to limit African Americans' ability to vote.
Yeah, and things are done on what appears to be an undercover way. Like no water for people who have to stand in line for 2 hours. Well, okay, does that apply to everybody everywhere, or will that just be hurting us in our communities? You see. And it's the same way they used to pass laws.
Because it's in terms of enforcement, right? Yeah. So if you say that as one of the voting bills in one of the states said that you can't give people standing in line water, is that only going to be enforced in African American neighborhoods?
Right.
Because that's enough. They can say, oh, it applies equally. But then if you only enforce it in African American neighborhoods, it's not being applied equally. We have another comment from Sheepdog Protector. They gave reparations to Jewish people for what happened to them, and that was not even in America. There were also reparations to the Japanese when they were placed in internment camps and their property taken from them. They received reparations for that because reparations is the payment of a debt. And no one wants to recognize the debt that is owed to descendants of American slavery.
No one.
But they are going to have to, our governments is going to have to recognize that debt, because that debt is owed.
And ongoing. Now, and one other thing about that is that, Japanese Americans, let's see, what happened in that? Did we not like bomb Japan pretty heavily with hydrogen bombs for the first time?
No, we did that.
And then we kind of built them up a little bit too afterwards, And so, not only the reparations, but here where they tried to eliminate these people and then brought them back to life. And I don't get a dime. Okay. They bombed us. Okay. But, it's just funny. It's part of the bipolar of the United States that I talk about a lot, is that it almost seems like they are bipolar. One day they're this way, one day they're that way. So, but it's tough, but we shouldn't even have to be dealing with things like voting rights. We shouldn't have to deal with things, I would hope, like even poverty, education, trying to get a good one, trying to get good things. When we talk about food deserts and things like that, that's not happening in the higher income areas and stuff, I mean, it's only going to happen down here where it hurts individuals, and it's most of us who are there. It brought up something, and I did not bring my computer, but one of the news stations just released a interview of James Baldwin that was never released back in the 70s. And it is quite telling. It is frightfully telling. And you have to hear this man's response to a few of the things that they asked him then. It's on the internet somewhere. You can find it. James Baldwin, the lost recording. It was never been aired before, and they finally brought it out. And what's important is that the first question that he's asked is, how do white people see us? And then what would they be afraid of? He addressed. And he addressed a few other questions too. And I would love to get to him in the very end and find it and talk about a couple of things, because he was right on addressing things that are affecting us even right now. And you can tell his frustration even during that time period. He was around a lot of family. At that point, he had bought a apartment building in Harlem, and his entire family lived there. He was the oldest of 9 kids, and his mom, they all lived there. And it was sort of a homecoming thing. It was something that he could provide for them, because when he was coming up and trying to write his books, they would provide for him. So it's a good thing to go check out and look at. It fuels flame for the next thing that's going to happen in our society. We were watching it come up, but I bet you the next thing that's going to come up, and it's something that I call, when is it your turn? When is it your turn? And I fear this. I fear, like we are seeing now, random violence that is being depicted on TV and things like that, and being told mass shootings and things like that, just every day going on. When is your turn? When is it going to be my turn, when I'm walking down the street or doing something, engaging in something, and someone comes at me with pulling a gun on me because they think I'm a big black guy who might be afraid of them? And there was an article that we read just the other day about a white woman who put it on a black woman. When someone's going to challenge me or say something to me, I would think that I'm a right mind to deal with anybody's oral attacks. But when is something going to happen to us? And it's frightful, because it's exactly the kind of thing I believe people had to live through and understand that they had to face when mass lynchings began and civil rights movements and people disappearing because you're fighting for what's right. It's when is something going to happen to me? It happens to us all the time, and we let it go. But we see things are drifting. When we hear rallies are going on to try to get the president back and things like that,
Try and get what president back? Because the president is in there.
45. I mean, they are, but people, I look at this stuff and I'm going, how could they even How can they even show up for things like that? How can they even have feelings and opinions like that?
Well, they're the same people that voted for 45.
Yeah.
So it's those exact same individuals. So there are, so now again, not saying that every person who voted for him is
Right.
one of those people who is advocating that there was some conspiracy to steal
Right.
the presidency from him, but a substantial number of people. There were also, even though there were people who probably did not feel that way, there were a number of citizens who, despite his displayed racism, still were
Voted.
determined to vote for him.
True. And it's kind of sad. It just makes me we got to think on that, is when is it going to be something for us? Because we're watching, and if you're watching news, we're watching things go on in a random fashion, and it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of things that are going on all at once.
I think we have to be careful with what we see, what is reported in the news, and try and do some research for yourself. Because what we're hearing right now is that, violent crime is on the rise,
gosh, yes.
Right? I don't know if that is accurate or inaccurate. I do know that there have been a number of policies, particularly here in California, that have been geared towards bringing people home earlier from prison, bringing them back to their families,
right,
who do love and miss them.
True.
And I know that there has been a backlash against some of those policies. So I would not be surprised if there were a false narrative that crime is on the rise, to try and say, aha, see what you've done. You let these people out of prison early, and now they're back and they're committing crimes, when that may not be the case at all.
True.
I want to look at the statistics for myself and not just take some talking head's word on the television that crime is up. Now, they may show you incident after incident after incident. That doesn't mean that crime is actually up. If you televise something more, it's going to appear as if it has increased, when it may not have.
Now, in the news, I just saw a neighborhood of Atlanta, a very posh neighborhood. In fact, Cardi B just moved in, so to speak. There's a guy who says he was jogging, and he says a car pulled up, and they just shot him. And he's making the 911 call, and everybody's like, "Whoa, this doesn't happen in this neighborhood." And they were talking about how crime has increased in this neighborhood, exponentially now. And what could that be? Two crimes when they had none? I mean, so you got to look at it that way. But what was interesting was there was no description of the car, the people, anything. And I wondered, well, are they looking for these people? I mean, did somebody put out, usually they're, hey, everybody in the area looking for this guy, or here's this, here's that. And it just got me to thinking, because he was shot in the legs. And he says just a random thing. He thinks they're acting for directions, and they just shoot him. And this is a posh area.
Does he not give any description of who the people were?
No. No one talked about that. And it's where Cardi B just moved in, apparently. $66,000 or 66,000 feet mansion that they showed us at the same time. So it could go just what you're talking about. This could be a propaganda type of move to show that, look, even in the high areas of Atlanta, this is happening. And here's what the city is doing. Dig this. The city they want to secede from the city. This neighborhood wants to be its own city so they can hire their own cops to do crime prevention. So they want to secede from the city, which is an interesting concept, isn't it? Funny how history, they say it don't repeat itself. Oh boy, where'd they learn that one from?
So I would note that there was a shooting that happened in Los Angeles. It was a road rage incident that happened on a freeway between a mother who was driving her car and another car. And the person from the other car actually fired off a weapon, and it went into the mother's car and actually hit and killed her 6-year-old child. And of course, there was basically all
Outrage.
points bulletin looking for this car. But the one thing that I noted is that while they were saying they were looking for this car and what a horrible thing this was that it had happened, and the language that they were using, you would have thought that this was related to gang violence, that this was some gang member who had done this, shot this poor, innocent 6-year-old child whose mother was just trying to take him to school.
That's what they said about the Atlanta thing.
Well, it turns out that once they actually, now I know that since they had the photograph of the car, they were able to use the license plate readers, find out a registered owner, and they could have put out a picture, not necessarily as the suspect, because when you see a car, you don't know who's driving the car. It could be the registered owner, or it could be a friend of the registered owner.
True.
But at least put out a photograph saying this is a person of interest because they're the owner of the car. But that wasn't done. And so we didn't see photographs of the people until after they had been arrested. And it may have even been a day or so after that. And photographs were published. And it was a male who appeared to me to be a white male, and then his Asian girlfriend. And now that's all we've heard about it. It has not continued to be a daily news story, such as what happens if something like that had happened and it had been an African American perpetrator. So we have to be wary of what we hear in the news and how people are portrayed differently in the news depending on their race.
And that just brings up the issue of are people running around just shooting at black people? I mean, is that the new the new trend? I mean, I'm just going, and then it just makes you kind of think of things like that, but I mean, we don't want to. Of course, we don't like to, but I mean, we do criminal defense. I mean, I think I feel enough hurt, pain from things that happen where I don't want to have to deal with it sort of off campus. But I am more, I guess maybe it's just, I have this terrible gut feeling. It's just something inside that seems to be, things are ramping up always, and so I'm afraid of that because of what it could happen, in encounters and stuff. Think about having a fair, like a county fair now, and factions, going against each other and stuff. I mean, it's just, it could be not.
By factions, you mean like perhaps some of the
proud
boys determining that they don't like some of the other people that are there for whatever,
or vice versa, even. It can be a lot of things, and it's just that then it becomes like the movie Wild in the Streets. It's gonna be every person for themselves and stuff.
Well, let's hope that it does not get to that. We have another comment in the chat from Sheepdog Protector. There are so many Zimmerman types out there. And I think what Sheepdog Protector is referring to is Mr. Zimmerman, who killed Trayvon Martin, in that there are so many people out there who believe that it is their duty to try and enforce what they believe to be a violation of the law. Most times, which turns out to be that they're completely inaccurate. And that's kind of the same. Yes. Yeah. That's kind of the same thing that we see with the situation of what they're calling the Karens, where it seems as if they're constantly policing African American people for doing some of the simplest things, such as sitting in a Starbucks, watching birds, selling a little girl selling water, barbecuing in the park, which everyone else seems to enjoy. But if we're doing it, wait a minute, you're not within the 3-foot square in which only you can barbecue.
Woo.
which again takes us back to, I'd like to ask the viewers, what are your feelings about this new federal holiday? And are you satisfied with the holiday? And now they've given you something, you don't need any reparations. You have your holiday. So now just be quiet. You have your holiday. We've done what we can. Be patient. How long must we be patient to be treated as full citizens of the country? This is my country. I love this country. I may not love everything that this country has done, but I love what this country stands for. And I want to see this country live up to those ideals.
And that's the thing. Can it live up to it? You know, becomes the weird part.
It can.
Can it?
We can be the example for the world. That's what we tell the world we are. We can do that. We have a comment in the chat from CC Badger. Why can't we get a law that all law enforcement gets a psych evaluation yearly or bi-yearly due to their exposure in their job and to trauma? That's true. And for the fact that they are human beings that also go through life issues as we all do. CC Badger, that is an extremely good idea. I know that law enforcement, when they are hired, there is some kind of minimal psych evaluation. But in light of their job, the trauma that they go through, I think that you are certainly correct that there should be a yearly or a bi-yearly evaluation to make sure that they are still okay. They tell us all the time that's one of the most stressful jobs to have because they feel like their life is on the line every time they are on duty. So if it causes that kind of stress, and you have an officer who is internalizing that, and no one is evaluating him for that. I believe that is an extremely good idea. And I'm going to suggest that we contact our legislator and make that suggestion that we want our legislator to write a new bill that will require psychological evaluation for officers, because we are acknowledging that you have a very stressful job and we are realizing that you are only human.
You know who does this? DMV for drivers, right? After a while, especially when you get over the age of 70, you got to come in.
Not psych evaluation, but you're saying that there is an evaluation.
There's a testing evaluation because of the nature of losing your driving skills. Could happen in a 6-month period, and they do that. Commercial drivers have to go through other testing and stuff to be sure that you're aware of the rules and stuff.
We know that law enforcement, not all agencies, but some of them apparently don't even enforce the physical standards of staying in shape. I know that many of you have seen the police officer who is, shall we say, stout, okay, who appears that maybe he's been to the donut shop one too many times. And so, if you have that person who's not keeping up with the physical standards, what is going to happen in an incident where that person has to chase someone? Right? Are they going to chase them, or are they going to go for the easy way for me to stop this person is to pull my gun and shoot him rather than for me to get winded trying to chase him? I think that is an extremely good idea, and I believe Lawman wrote it down that we will be contacting some legislatures and seeing if we can convince them to sponsor that bill. We have another comment from Zim Mobway Walker. Karen nurses killed a lot of Africans hiding as COVID cases. That could be a possibility. That's something that I didn't even think of, that if we have Karens just out on the everyday street, right? We know that they exist in all walks of life, in all jobs, in all occupations. So is it theoretically feasible that you could have someone who is in the job of a nurse, but who basically
neglects their duties? Remember the black doctor or nurse who was ill, and she tried to warn people about the terrible treatment she was getting, and she did.
That was the doctor.
She did die. Yeah.
Did she pass away?
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
I remember
and she was
that.
trying to complain.
She was an actual doctor herself, and the treatment that she received was substandard. Maybe there was more than one. The one that I'm thinking of, I don't think she died. I think she left that hospital where she was getting the substandard treatment, even though she herself was a doctor, and she went to another hospital and received better treatment and recovered. But there certainly may have been
had passed away.
That probably is likely true as well, because many people did pass away from that. We have another comment, and just going back to what Zimbabwe said, we know that there have been nurses who have claimed that they were being merciful and did things to result in ending the life of patients. There are nurses that are white nurses that are in prison for having engaged in that kind of conduct. Now, there may be African-American nurses as well. I don't know. The ones that I've heard of were white. We have another comment from Sheepdog Protector. I think Juneteenth is important because at this time they're trying to hide our history. I have 20-year-old black men at work that do not know our history and think that racism is gone. Oh, I don't know how they think that, but the right incident, and they will be reminded that it is
alive and well.
So we don't, Juneteenth, let us be very, very clear. Juneteenth is important. It was important before they decided that, we will make this a federal holiday. So please don't misunderstand that. We've celebrated it with our families, with our community. So yes, Juneteenth is extremely important, but don't give this to us as a holiday and say, now be quiet about reparations. Okay, you guys want something for slavery? All right, we're going to give you Juneteenth as a holiday. So it's a day off for federal workers. Now we've given you something, now go away. No, we appreciate that. We're going to continue to celebrate it because we were celebrating it before you gave it to us as a federal holiday. But now let's move the conversation where it needs to go, and let's talk about the debt that is owed.
And it didn't come with an apology. So,
I don't,
I mean, not even a hate.
I don't.
Sorry about that.
An apology. Don't give me an apology. Well, pay the debt. If you owe me money, I don't need you to apologize to me about the money you owe me. Pay me what you owe me. You can save your apology. Pay me what you owe. CC Badger says, they're not going to chase them, but they will keep chasing those donuts, talking about the overweight officers. We have another comment from Zimbabwe Walker. It's not a good sign to have an essentially oppressed part of a country. In the case of Blacks, New Africans, ADOS, meaning American descendants of slaves, traditions or cultural celebrations appropriated by the oppressor. And CC Badger comments, our Black history has definitely diminished in our schools. Oh, CC Badger, I don't think that they have ever really taught African-American history in our schools. I can remember there being like a little paragraph, and it talked about Benjamin Banneker helping to do the surveilling for the Capitol.
That's right.
And then there was a little bit on Martin Luther King. I'm not sure back at that time if they even mentioned Malcolm X, because I don't think they cared too much for him. What we have to do is to stop relying on the schools to be the primary educators of our children.
Just and I don't Zimbabwe, but just saying though about the
you cannot, when he mentions the oppressor, you cannot allow. And I'm trying to remember who said this. So if there's someone in the chat who knows, please let me know. I can't remember. It may have even have been. Oh my goodness. I can't remember, but the saying was basically, if you allow your oppressor to educate your children, that is a huge problem, because they're not going to give them the complete history. And so what we have to do as parents and as neighbors and as community members is to teach our children. To supplement. Now, I'm not saying let's leave public schools. I'm not saying that at all. Public schools certainly can be improved, but we also have to supplement the education that they receive there, because we have to understand that that education will not be complete.
Right. And similar to what he was talking about, the 20-year-old man who he may not realize what racism really is, and not understand it. Because, well, but Carm, you can see that happening, I mean, where it's not where you don't have that talk at home a lot, maybe, where it's not, your friends are not that,
maybe because I am, and because of my job, I am around, I have contact with a lot of young African American men, unfortunately, in this criminal justice system, and I have yet to come across one that does not recognize the racism that exists in our society. And you can have, I suppose, some people, African American, who are living somewhat of a privileged lifestyle, and so they don't have to interact with people who are having to suffer the majority of this racism, and so they erroneously believe that it does not exist.
You know what? That got me thinking of this when you were saying that wait a minute, it could be that it's not that they don't know what racism is or anything, on the surface academically, but they may not have experienced it enough because they don't know that it's against them. Mm-hmm. And so they don't understand the ramifications of where it came from, why it exists, and how it can be in everything. And you may not know it because it needs to be hidden and it can't show its face. And I think they move. Here's why. Because we tend to, well, I'm just going to say it. A lot of our young men tend to do things so that the system actually catches them, so that they are in the system. They tease with that.
You're gonna have to explain that.
Here's what I mean. Meaning, out here pulling licks become a joke. To everybody. I pull one on you, you pull one on me. I go put it up on the internet, and I don't give a shit if the cops catch me.
Well, if it's a joke, that's a different thing.
No, but I'm saying,
joke. If it's a joke, that's a different thing. If it's a joke, it's not a crime.
I'm just saying they treat it like that. It is a crime, but they treat it as it ain't no big deal. You see, and therefore they don't realize though that Jonah the whale is waiting to take you in when you behave that way. And it's good boys who fall underneath that. It's good boys who get involved in shootings and things like that, who act tough, who want to do things, not realizing this system and how it will drown you for that. I mean, a lot can grow up believing that, if you don't have that, look at rappers, right? You got to get your street cred, right? You got to be tough. You got to be this. You got to be that, before you become respected. Our gang cops are always out there talking about that's the one big thing. That's what everyone wants.
But that's a lie. That's a lie. That is setting a straw man up. Every human wants to be respected. Who do you know that's human who wants to be walked all over and not respected? So to say simply that is something unique to gang members is a lie.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that they don't understand the full ramifications of things that they're doing and how this system is drawing them into doing things like that. You see? I mean, but because we can have a spirited one on that one.
So we have a comment here. The two people that are doing vaccines at my job have Confederate flag stickers on their cars. And that's from Sheepdog Protector. If you mean by doing vaccines, if you mean that the people who are administering the vaccines have Confederate flag stickers on their car, I would not be taking a vaccine from them. If I were taking the vaccine, it would be at a doctor's office, and I guess supposedly even then you don't know, about your doctor, but hopefully you've screened your doctor well enough that you feel more comfortable with your doctor. But again, that brings to life the point that you can have these so-called Karens and these Zimmermans working in any facet of life. And so, yes, you could have somebody who's administering the vaccine, and maybe this particular person decides because, I'm going to have a special vaccine for the people that I don't like that come through. It's going to be a vaccine that didn't stay refrigerated or set out. Now, hopefully, the employer or whoever is administering the program has a set of checks and
Protocols,
balances and
yes.
protocols where there isn't just one person making that determination. But sheepdog protector, that would worry me, and I certainly would not take a vaccine from those individuals.
But the thing is, once again, it's hidden. If I don't go look out at the car, if I don't go check my doctor's car, then I don't know something. And I'm just saying that, we get some of our young males, you got to watch that Baldwin thing because he speaks on about 8 different things that are totally relatable.
Is this on Netflix?
It's just out there on the web. I was going to pull it up at the very end,
Okay.
But one of the things he talks about is that when he was 22, his best friend jumped off the Washington Bridge, and he was 24, and he was just fed up. He was enraged with the racism and with the position that they're in, feeling that they're lied to by their country. And Baldwin felt he was going to be next. And that's one of the reasons why he definitely had to go to France in order to express himself and to write his books, because he had to take a deep breath and realize what was happening to him, the rage that he felt sometimes when you're angry, when you see racist acts, when you see people being treated a certain way, that you get angry and frustrated and you want to act out. And that that is a danger to us. That is a critical danger to us. And I'm just saying, some of our young males, they do that. That could be a lot of things of why the rage is there, to do wrong, to kill their fellow man and things like that.
I think that is also a possibility. I also think, again, we live in a very materialistic society where the focus is on how much material things you can amass, and that the importance of that, it's just given far too much importance. Certainly, we all need a roof over our head. We need healthy food to eat. We need clothes to wear. But there's a lot of additional extraneous material stuff that these young people are inundated with every single day, with what they're seeing on social media, with what they're seeing on television.
How people dress, how everybody,
and
how people
what's
carry
expected,
themselves.
what
Girls with
bringing it back to the respect.
Yeah.
What will make you respected? You have to have the right kind of shoes, and you have to have the expensive belt, and you have to have this.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting nice things, but we need you to be willing to work for those. We also need our reparations, so that not so that they can be necessarily spent on nice things, but so that we can build the wealth that allows you to be able to purchase those things, should you so choose so. And bringing it back to the people posting stuff, young men posting stuff on social media, that is because we have become this society where it is, look at me, look at me. I have to give you something to see. And so, people are posting stuff because they want to try and get the most likes. I saw a post just this week by a man, and I won't mention, I don't even think that I remember the name, but I saw the post, and he had posted himself with a ski mask on and words to the effect of tomorrow. And I thought, I'm not quite sure what that means, but it was one of those pictures where, like, oh, he's taking a kind of sinister picture of himself. Is he saying he's going to do something tomorrow? And so I tried to reach out, and I don't think he was from his photograph, if I had to guess, I would say that he was probably early 30s. And he wasn't a friend of mine, but I messaged him and said, I don't know what your photograph means. I hope that it does not mean that you are going to or consider engaging in any act of criminality. And if you are, brother, if you are, I ask you to please think of another master plan. Reach out to the people who love you, because that is not the way. That will just get you trapped in that system that is meant to trap you. And that's that prison industrial complex. We don't want that. We don't want that. And stop posting yourself on social media with guns. How many times have we had a client's own social media page being the thing that is used to convict them during the course of their trial.
All the time. Practically all the time, if they get a chance.
And if you have no record and you can legitimately have a firearm, right? There's no reason for you to not go out and get your firearm legitimately. But if you're planning to commit criminal acts with it, whether it's a legal firearm or an illegal firearm, first I say, don't do it. Reach out to the people who love you. If you need something, reach out to the people who love you. Your grandmother, your mother, your father, your sister, your cousin. You have somebody that loves you. Even if it's just a friend. I was a foster kid, I don't have any of those things. There's somebody out there that loves you. Reach out to them.
But this goes back to that. When I'm talking about the rage, I'm talking about, the doing the silly, nonsensical things that you don't think about doing out of impulse because of your anger inside, things that you've pressed inside, something you've seen and hated all your life and couldn't understand. A father being gone could be a traumatic situation for the kids who are left.
That is true. And we know that young men are extremely, extremely impulsive. Yes. And I think that science has proven that their brains are not fully formed until the age of what? 25?
Yeah.
So you're going to have young men acting on impulse, right? And especially if they don't have a role model or structure or someone that they can turn to or that they can rely on. So for those of you who are viewers who are male, we're asking you to reach out and be that person for someone, even if it's only one person. Be that person. Sometimes and you can see when someone is struggling they're on the edge, right? Pull them back. We need them. They're part of this community too.
Yeah. We could talk like a million years on this and we can't, but it is so important. If you see a kid, if you see a child, if you see a human being, one of us in trouble, really struggling with something, I don't think it's wrong to say something, anything. Mm-hmm. I got your back, it's going to be all right. Mm-hmm. Anything like that. Because we have to start that kind of dialogue amongst ourselves and stuff. We see the worst of it because we're looking in the mirror as well as we're looking at others. Mm-hmm. And you can see in others' faces, sometimes. That's why, the old, you walk by a black person, you look them in the eye, you nod, the whole, silent nod. I practice, I do it all the time. I want to do it all the time.
I actually verbally speak.
See, if you can, yeah. But sometimes, far away or something. Mm-hmm. But if I'm walking by, hey, how you doing, man? What's up? How you doing? Something. Just to acknowledge each other, mm-hmm. And we just have to be careful. We're living in a tense kind of situation, And here's the thing: how can we bring you solvency? Becomes one of the big issues. Is how do we solve such issues? It's a case by case and a man by man, woman by woman task. We all have to sort of do whatever we can to get out here and educate as much as possible. Share your knowledge in any way, shape, or form in forums that you may have. If you belong to a church and they have a church service on Sunday, maybe the pastor would be interested in taking 15 minutes, 20 minutes and discussing some issues like this, about what to do next, how to get together and what people should be thinking about and how are we going to improve our communities. It's best when we have a group of us together. There's always been the thing of divide and conquer amongst us. And so, because nobody likes us hanging out. Carm, when there's 4 or 5 lawyers in a hallway of the courthouse and they're all black and they're talking to each other, what happens when the white people walk by? Tell them.
It's as if we're a mob.
Right.
Oh, what are you guys up to?
Yeah, everybody sees that. Wait, what are you guys doing? Hey.
But what they don't realize is all the time they're talking in those
same things. Yes.
So it shouldn't be anything different when it's us.
Right. This is just a rare moment that us 4 are in the hallway together because that's probably 4 out of the 8, out there. So it's just funny. Perspective is really key in that.
Yes.
So, Wow. Look, time goes by so fast. Um, but I got to encourage people on the Baldwin thing. I really do. And I'll tell you something. It is 10 minutes long. And I think I got it here. If people would allow, I would play this thing because it is profound. Let me find. Let's see if it's here. And I think we can hook that up, Carm. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Come on, come on. Let's see. Talk about something else real quick, Carm.
Okay. Well, while Mr. Staten is looking for that, do you have it?
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay.
Now, I probably can't play because, but I'm certain our speakers will probably pick this up if I can get it to air. Yeah. Let me go to the actual.
So while he is looking for that, I will. Do you have it?
Yep.
Okay.
And let's see what happens.
So we're gonna play this for the last portion. I don't think. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna
work. Someone told me if you can hear that, and I'll
you
stop
would want to put it up.
Oh, is that the one?
Yeah, that's the one.
I'm thinking that's a. I thought this was a fan.
It's a microphone. It's a big giant microphone.
I was wondering, it's a fan. It's hot in here. How come you ain't got it on, Tom? What's up with that? It's looking at us. All right, hold on. Let me start this over because I bet you it'll be fine there.
And then once he starts playing it, if someone could just comment in the chats and let us know whether or not it's loud enough for you to hear. If it isn't, what we'll do is reserve it for next time, and we'll find a way to actually play it on the screen.
All right, here we go. And this is turned up. Yep. Yeah. Yep. I know, my old iPhone.
White people go around, it seems to me, with a very carefully suppressed terror of black people. Tremendous uneasiness. They don't know what the blackface hides. They're sure it's hiding something. What it's hiding is American history. You know, what it's hiding is what white people know they have done and are doing. You know, it's what white people know very well. One thing, that's the only thing they have to know. They know this, everything else they say is a lie. They know they would not like to be black here. They know that. Now they know that, and they're telling me lies. They're telling me and my children nothing but lies.
For Baldwin, the truth is that the ghettos of his youth remain, gnawing at the spirit of those who live there.
The poverty is piled high, making it even more inescapable. And making it even more inescapable how thoroughly you're despised. The high-rise slum becomes a high-crime area almost at once, because what are you going to do with all these children, really? Whole families condemned forever to nothing in the richest city in the world. My best friend, a black boy, jumped off George Washington Bridge when he was 24 and I was 22. And I was sure that I was going to be next.
Just from despair, or?
From despair, from rage, because you can get to a place where you're in battle so often that that's all you can do. You're beaten so hard. What you can do is your world narrows to a kind of red circle of rage, and you begin to hate everybody, which means you hate yourself. And when that happens, it's over for you.
Baldwin has taken that despair and rage and turned it into novels, theater, and essays. Characters drawn from his family and friends. This fall, Dial Press is publishing his 19th book, a novel called Just Above My Head, the story of a black gospel singer during the civil rights struggle. The gospel church is a theme running through much of Baldwin's work. His father was a minister, and Baldwin himself became a preacher at the age of 13. His play, The Amen Corner, shown in revival at Lincoln Center's Black Theater Festival, was drawn from his own experiences in the pulpit.
Anything that.
For many growing up in poverty, the church was the only consolation. When Baldwin left the church, he wanted to do more than to console. Often, Baldwin speaks to youngsters who grew up as he did, letting them know the future holds a place for them. On this day, he spoke at the Police Athletic League in Harlem.
A writer might be a dancer, might be a carpenter, might be architect, might be a junkie, might be any number of things. You think there's still a chance for today's black writer? There never was a chance for a black writer. What's your name? Cherry. See, a writer black or white. Right? Nobody wants a writer. But to answer your real question, there's a greater chance for the black writer today than there ever has been.
The children asked him the same question I wanted answered. Why did he move to Paris?
Paris is very important to me because I was able to, take a deep breath, and I was able, it may sound a very corny way to put it, but I wanted to find out where being black ended where I began, or vice versa. I mean, that some things had happened to me because I was Jimmy, and some things happened to me because I was black. I wanted to find out how to get these things together. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life going around saying, you treat me that way because I'm black.
After attaining worldwide acclaim as a black writer, Baldwin wrote Giovanni's Room, an explicitly homosexual love story. His publishers in New York refused to print it for fear of alienating his newly acquired white, middle-class audience. Baldwin was furious and took the book to England for publication.
You published Giovanni's Room very early on in your...
I finished the book in 55.
And that, to deal with homosexuality was difficult. And you already were dealing with, black writer.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to do that?
Well, when you say almost that I didn't have an awful lot of choice, it was something... Giovanni's Room comes... something which... it frightened me, especially my own sexuality. I used to know when I was younger, a great many men, boys, who were so terrified that they might, if you're bisexual, they might want to go to bed with a man. You might be able to fall in love with a man. They were so frightened of that they could never fall in love with anybody else. They were so frightened of men they couldn't touch women. Giovanni's Room comes somewhere out of that.
Did you also feel that you wanted to get it on the record, your own homosexuality, early?
I don't know if that. Well, I don't know if I wanted to get it on the record, but I wanted to confront it. I'm very glad that that was done, because it also simplified my life in another way, because it meant that I had no secrets. Nobody could blackmail me. Well, you didn't tell me, I told you.
James Baldwin is one of those lucky people who's never been unsure of his family's love. The oldest of 9 children, he was helped financially by the others during his struggling years in France. Now he's in the States more than in Europe, and with his family more often than not. With the success of his books, he was able to buy a Manhattan apartment building, where his mother and several family members live now. Mrs. Baldwin's apartment is a center of activity for the whole family.
Did you think he was going to be as big a success and as important?
No.
All right, so...
No, I didn't think that, but I knew that he had to write.
Brothers and sisters and friends of the family were there, nieces and nephews underfoot.
He still can't upstage me now.
Conversation ran the gamut of subjects, but Baldwin's mood turned when we spoke of the American attitude toward blacks.
There's a price this republic exacts. Any black man or woman walking And that is a crime. I paid for that crime in my life. And I don't believe my countrymen anymore. They will not do to him what they failed to do to me. I was 7 years old 47 years ago, and nothing has changed since then. Look. I don't mean it to you personally. I don't even know you. No. I got nothing against you. I don't know you personally. I know you historically. You can't have it both ways. You can't swear to the freedom of all mankind and put me in chains.
It sounds as if you believe that slavery put a curse on us somehow.
Well, it is a curse, you know. The American sense of reality is dictated by what Americans are trying to avoid. And if you're trying to avoid reality, how can you face it? You know, if you don't know what is going on in the ghettos of this nation, in the hearts and minds of women and men you see every day, you don't. First of all, in that case, you don't really know what's going on in your own heart and mind. You have no way of knowing what's going on in the hearts and minds of millions of people on this globe.
You have told people, this nation in particular, a lot of what they don't want to hear.
Yeah, I have. I tried. No. I tried, yes, to. And the song says, "Wake the children sleeping." You know, it's supposed to be a disturber of the peace.
Still preaching, huh?
Yeah.
So, I hope you heard that last part where he was talking about his voice and how he was talking about Mahalia. Mahalia Jackson had a song, "Wake the Children Sleeping," and it's very similar to what we call being woke. You know, is a lot of us are sleeping, and we've got to wake each other up and let us know that the time is now,
and we can't continue to be complacent. I did receive a text message from one of our viewers that indicated that they had found those James Baldwin videos a few years ago, and that they found them to be fascinating. That was from Mr. Mack.
Yeah, and he what he says about the way America thinks. In the very first part about how the one thing that white America knows is that they do not want to be black in America. And that's the psychotic thing that I'm talking about.
They've created the condition.
Right.
Lawman, once again, we have come to the close of another show. We've actually went a little bit over, but I think that was some very important information to present. And we have to remember the wisdom and the knowledge of those who have come before us. And James Baldwin was definitely one of those people with that wisdom.
And used his words to express himself. I totally understand a lot of what he's saying and how he had to get away from here in order to even know what was going on. So looks like we've come to the end of the day. Everybody love each other.
Yes. And again, remember, as you can see, we are proudly displaying still the Sankofa bird, and that is
look back,
right? See we can't leave anybody behind. If we're going to make it, we all have to make it. And that's America as a whole. True. We again appreciate you for spending part of your evening with us here at Courtside with Lawman
and Carmen B.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good night.